Hi, I'm Bill Crawford. I'm in my gym, Basic Training MedX in Scottsdale, Arizona. Today I'd like to talk to you about the MedX training version of the Lumbar Extension Machine. It's a fantastic machine that isolates and strengthens the lower back muscles, the paraspinal muscles, the erector spinae muscles of the lumbar region of the lumbar spine. We all know that Arthur Jones was dedicated to the proposition of trying to figure out how to isolate muscles and train them in isolation through the full range of motion with equalized resistance. This was a little bit of a challenge for Arthur because the pelvic structure rotates with the spine on flexion and extension. Lots of different versions were tried, and we're all familiar with hyperextension machines, the rubber balls, even the Nautilus low back machine. On further investigation, after it was designed and manufactured, was proven to be more of a glute and hamstring machine than a low back machine. So here's the pelvic structure and here's the spine. When the pelvic structure and the spine are rotating back and forth like this, you can't help but recruit more muscles from the glutes and hamstrings than from the low back. And subsequently, the low back just kind of goes along for the ride. So finally, through an elaborate system of restraining devices, this machine was invented. And here's how it works. You sit in the machine like this, and after it's properly adjusted, which is the patella needs to be slightly above the iliac crest. That's about 118 degrees of bend. These pads are centered below and above the patella, and then you crank this down. And when you crank this down, it's actually pushing, driving the femurs into the pelvic structure and blocking the structure against these roller pads. And these roller pads are critical. They do a couple of things. Number one, they stabilize the pelvic structure when you are properly restrained. The other thing that they do is they act as a measure or a gear. Those of us who are familiar with mechanics, you know when one gear is turning, the other gear is turning. So if this is properly restrained and your pelvic structure is pushed against these roller pads, the roller pads will not move when you go into flexion and extension. And if they do move, that means that the pelvic structure is not restrained and you're not in tight enough. So after you have put yourself in the machine and you're locked in, then you release the movement arm. You bring the movement arm down as far as you can without the roller pads moving, and then you push up into full extension and then bring it back down and push up and bring down and then push back up. When you're finished, come all the way down, release the movement arm, bring the movement arm back up and then lock it back in so that it doesn't fall down on you. And then you can release the restraining device, push it out of the way, and you're good to go. A couple of things I'd like to tell you about the MedX equipment. This is true across the board with all MedX equipment. Number one, the weight stacks, there's no cables, chains, or guide rods. The stacks are lifted from underneath with a system of levers, so there's no friction. This means that most of the force produced by muscular contraction goes to lifting the weight, providing resistance to drive the muscles to fatigue, not overcoming friction and other issues. Number two, it's a compound weight stack, which means there's 20-pound weights on the bottom and 2-pound increments on the top. These are used in combination so that you can always be at exactly the right weight, where we hope to be able to produce muscle failure between 8 and 12 repetitions. Another outstanding feature with all MedX equipment, the length of travel in the weight stack is about 12 inches or less. What that does is it greatly mitigates the opportunity for inertia or momentum, which greatly reduces any opportunity for weight resistance exercise related injuries caused by impact force. So let's go over this recap just for a moment, okay? These are the all important roller pads, okay? And again, they're used for two things. Number one, to stabilize the pelvic structure. so that when you're going into flexion and extension, it doesn't move. And number two, we can also use this as a gauge to find our range of motion. Let's say that you have the subject sitting in here, and we bring this down to this position, and these roller pads start to move. That means we probably want to limit our range of motion to be able to exercise within the parameters of no movement within those roller pads. I strongly suggest this in anyone's training facility because it's so critical to exercise the lumbar spine. That's really the core. A lot of people say, oh, what's your core? Let's exercise your core. Well, what is your core? Is it your ascending colon? Is it your transverse colon? Is it your small intestine? Is it your liver? No, it's the muscles of the back, the muscles that hold you up. Abdominal muscles, when they're functioning, they're not holding you up, they're pulling you down. So to strengthen your back by exercising your abdominals would be akin to working out your biceps to strengthen your triceps. This is it, the MedX Lumbar Extension Machine. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.